It was supposed to be a normal Saturday morning. I'd spent the last 3 weekends building a wooden swing set in my backyard, a simple gift for my twin nephews who'd be visiting from out of town. And 5 minutes after they tried it for the first time, the cops were at my door. One Karen-type neighbor destroyed the swing, screamed that her son got seriously injured on it, and called 911 to report me for reckless endangerment of a child. Except none of it was true, and she didn't know I had receipts. Stick around, because what happened next made the whole neighborhood turn on her. If you've ever dealt with someone like this, hit subscribe. This one's for you. The morning started quiet. Warm breeze, distant lawnmowers, birds chirping. The kind of peaceful weekend that makes you forget how annoying some people can be. I was finishing the final coat of sealant on the new swing, watching it glisten in the sunlight like it belonged in a brochure. The ropes were thick, the seat curved and sanded smooth, the structure bolted into the earth like a bunker. I wasn't about to let my nephews get hurt on my watch. That's when I heard the high-pitched voice. "Is this even regulation?" Agnes, mid-50s, red bob cut like a helmet, sunglasses big enough to land a helicopter on, the self-appointed guardian of all things HOA. I barely looked up. "It's on my property," I said simply, checking the sealant for bubbles. "I have a son," she snapped. "He could see this and try to use it. Then what? You gonna pay his medical bills?" I didn't respond. Arguing with her was like trying to reason with a smoke alarm. You can't just put things up without approval. This is a safety hazard. If he gets hurt, he won't, I interrupted calmly. And again, it's my property. She scoffed like I'd just kicked a puppy. "I'll be talking to the board." I turned back to the swing and ignored her. I'd built it for family. It didn't need HOA approval because it was within all legal codes, nowhere near the easement line. But facts weren't Agnes's thing. Drama was. She stormed off. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Around noon, my sister dropped off the twins, Jacob and Miles, 8 years old, energy like they'd been raised on jet fuel. First thing they spotted? The swing. Shoes flew off. One of them yelled, "I call first," and they raced across the grass. I supervised closely, watched each of them take turns, held the ropes steady, made sure they didn't try stunts. Pure joy. That kind of laughter you don't hear much anymore. And then the doorbell rang. I turned, half expecting a delivery. Instead, I saw Agnes's son, Mason, maybe 10, lying dramatically on the grass near the swing, Agnes screaming bloody murder while pointing at me. "You pushed him," she shouted. "You attacked my son. I saw it. You built that death trap and shoved him off." "What?" I stepped forward, stunned. "I didn't even touch him." She held up her phone. "Already on the line with dispatch. You're going to jail, you maniac." Her voice was loud enough to rattle windows. Mason wasn't crying. He looked confused more than hurt. And when I stepped toward him, she shrieked, "Don't you dare come near him!" Neighbors were peeking through blinds. Some were already stepping outside. Then she marched to the swing, yanked it sideways, and started kicking it. "You want kids to break their necks? This is illegal. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen." I stood frozen as she tore one of the ropes loose. "Lady, stop," I managed. "That's destruction of property." "Property? This is a weapon." Sirens in the distance. 2 minutes later, a cruiser pulled up and 2 officers stepped out, one with a notebook, the other with a hand on his belt. "Sir, we got a report of child endangerment," the first one said. "Step away from the swing." "She assaulted my son with that thing," Agnes screamed. "He's probably got a concussion." One of the officers bent over Mason. "You hurt, kid?" Mason looked at his mom, then at the swing, then shrugged. "I just fell. I'm okay." But Agnes wasn't having it. "He doesn't know he's concussed. He's in shock." The second officer turned to me. "Mind telling me what happened?" I took a breath, steadying my voice. "My nephews were playing. Mason must have run over and tried to join in. No one pushed him. He just fell. She," I pointed to Agnes, "destroyed the swing and then called you." Agnes was pacing now, arms waving like she was testifying in court. "This man is a threat. He built an unapproved structure that could kill a child. I demand charges." The officers exchanged looks. "Do you have any documentation about the swing?" the older one asked. I did. Blueprints, permit approval, video footage, and I was just getting started. I led the officers inside, hands steady, even though my pulse felt like it was trying to escape through my throat. In my office, tucked inside a blue folder marked HOABS, I kept everything. Drawings, zoning regulations, correspondence with the city, all dated and stamped. I handed it over without a word. The older cop flipped through the pages, eyebrows rising. "You got permits?" he asked. "Yep. Structure under 8 feet, no easement encroachment, safe distance from fences. Built it exactly to code. Even checked with the city before starting." He nodded slowly, then glanced at the younger officer. "Let's take a look at that camera." The footage was even better than I remembered. A clear shot from my back porch camera. Jacob swinging, then Miles. Mason runs up from the side, yanks the swing toward him, tries to jump on midair, loses his grip, and drops onto the grass. No one pushed him. No contact. No yelling. No danger. The cops watched in silence. "You mind if we make a copy of this?" the older one asked. "Take the whole file if you want," I said. "She's been trying to make trouble for months. Last time she reported me for having a ladder against the garage for more than 12 hours. The officer sighed like a man who had seen one too many of these calls. "We'll have to write it up anyway. She's making it a formal report. But with this," he nodded toward the footage, "you're covered." When we stepped back outside, the swing now sat in a heap. 2 ropes torn off, the seat cracked where Agnes had stomped on it. Mason was sitting up, legs crossed, picking at the grass. Agnes was mid-rant to a neighbor when she saw us and stormed over. "Are you arresting him?" she demanded. The older cop's expression didn't change. "No, ma'am. There's no evidence of a crime." "He assaulted my son." "No, ma'am. We reviewed camera footage from Mr. Miller's home. Your son fell while attempting to get on the swing unassisted. No one touched him." She looked like she'd been slapped. "That's not possible. That footage is fake. You can't just take his word." "It's time-stamped and secured," the officer cut her off. "If you'd like to file a complaint, you're welcome to do so with the department. But we're not pursuing charges." She turned to me, eyes wild. "You think this is over? You built that death trap. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen." "I built it legally," I said calmly. "And you just destroyed private property in front of half the neighborhood. You want to talk lawsuits?" Her mouth opened, closed. She looked around. Half a dozen neighbors were outside now, watching. Some with phones. "Fine," she spat. "We'll see what the HOA says. I'm calling an emergency session." She yanked Mason up by the arm and stormed off. The officers exchanged glances again, then turned to leave. "Thanks for your time, sir," the younger one said. I nodded, but I knew it wasn't over. Not with Agnes. The HOA meeting would be the next battlefield. That night, the neighborhood group chat exploded. "Agnes, emergency HOA session tomorrow 6:30 p.m. Topic, unauthorized structures and child safety violations. Tom C., my next-door neighbor. Didn't you destroy his swing in front of the kids?" Agnes, "It was a threat. I did what any responsible mother would do." Carla M., "It was a nice swing. My daughter was looking forward to trying it." Agnes, "Safety greater than aesthetics. If you care about this community, you'll show up tomorrow." I didn't reply. I was already planning my next move. The next day, I showed up early to the community hall. Slacks, collared shirt, folder in hand. Sophie, my friend and real estate lawyer, joined me. She didn't live here, but she'd represented me on other HOA matters before. Calm, direct, and scary smart. Agnes was already inside, clipboard in hand, buzzing like she was hosting a press conference. Mason sat near the back with headphones on. I nodded at a few neighbors. Some nodded back. Others avoided my eye. At 6:30 sharp, Agnes tapped the mic. We are gathered here today to address a serious violation of our community safety standard, she began, voice smooth like she'd rehearsed it in front of the mirror. Yesterday, a child was injured on an illegal swing set. Objection, Sophie said from the third row. Agnes faltered. Excuse me? Sophie stood. The swing was built in compliance with HOA guidelines, city code, and with documented safety specifications. I have the paperwork here. Furthermore, the injury claim is false. Video evidence clearly shows no contact occurred. The room rustled with murmurs. Agnes tried to recover. That footage is questionable. It was reviewed by 2 police officers, I said, stepping forward. They declined to pursue any charges. If you continue this narrative, it becomes defamation. Agnes's jaw worked silently. And regarding the destruction of private property, Sophie continued, we are filing a formal claim with the HOA Insurance Board for damages. If the HOA refuses to act, we will take civil legal action. The room went still. I have a right to protect my son, Agnes blurted. You also have a responsibility not to lie or destroy other people's property, I said, especially when that property brought joy to your neighbor's children. Tom stood. My kid watched you rip that swing apart, Agnes. He hasn't stopped talking about it. Carla stood too. This isn't the first time you've gone off like this. You tried to get my mailbox fined for being too whimsical. Another voice from the back. Didn't she report the Johnsons for overly loud wind chimes? One by one, voices rose, and Agnes, for once, had no clipboard big enough to shield her from it. The room was no longer hers. The tide had turned. Agnes's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Her grip on the clipboard tightened until her knuckles turned white. She looked around for backup, but the usual allies she relied on were suddenly very busy avoiding her gaze. I only ever wanted what's best for the community, she managed to say, voice shaky now. You all know I care. Caring doesn't mean controlling, someone muttered. Sophie didn't let up. She stepped forward, voice even, precise. We're formally requesting that the HOA recognize this event as an abuse of authority and that Ms. Callahan be suspended from any decision-making positions until the matter is reviewed. Gasps echoed. That was her real name, Agnes Callahan. Not Karen, but she wore the title like a crown, until now. You can't, Agnes started, but Sophie cut her off. We can, and if necessary, we'll take it to the City Council and the HOA Oversight Board. This isn't your fiefdom. This is a neighborhood. I spoke up then, quiet but clear. All I did was build something for my nephews, something small, personal, legal. You tried to turn it into a crime. She shook her head, eyes darting between faces that no longer looked so friendly. I have rights. I've been here 15 years. So have we, Tom said. And for 15 years, you've made us miserable. You fined me for leaving my trash bin out 10 minutes past pickup, Carla added. You made me cut down a tree that wasn't even on my property line, someone else said. This isn't about a swing, Sophie said, stepping back. This is about a pattern. Agnes turned, suddenly wild-eyed. None of this is official. You can't vote me out. There's a process. Sophie raised a brow. Then let's start the process. And so we did. A formal motion was raised, right there in the room, to review her position as safety chair and freeze her authority pending investigation. 22 residents present. 17 voted in favor, 2 abstained, 3 against, including Agnes herself. It was done. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard one of the light fixtures trembled. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Carla said, So, can we rebuild the swing? Laughter broke the tension. That night, I went home exhausted but lighter. I sat on the back porch, looking at the twisted ropes and broken seat, and I didn't feel defeated. I felt ready. The next morning, I got to work. It took 2 days, but the new swing was even better. Reinforced beams, a wider seat, weatherproof ropes, and bright red paint the kids picked themselves. When Jacob and Miles came over again the following weekend, they squealed with joy. You fixed it, Jacob shouted. Better than before, I said. Go try it. They ran straight for it, And this time, the only audience was a few neighbors who wandered over. Tom, Carla, even quiet old Mrs. Dupree. Someone brought lemonade. Someone else brought a folding chair. The kids laughed. The swing swayed in the breeze. And there, standing at the edge of her lawn, arms crossed and seething, was Agnes. She didn't speak. Not a word. She just stared, face unreadable. But she didn't step forward. She didn't call the cops, and she didn't touch my swing, because now she knew she wasn't untouchable, and I wasn't alone. The following week, everything got quiet. Too quiet. No passive-aggressive notes on doors, no midnight HOA compliance sweeps. Agnes didn't show up at the weekly bulletin board update. The clipboard was gone. The silence wasn't peace, it was a pause. And I knew her kind. She wasn't done. She was regrouping. Sophie called it first. "She'll go nuclear before she gives up," she said over the phone. "She's the type that needs to win, even when she's wrong." I started noticing strange things. My mailbox was slightly ajar twice in 1 week. A neighbor mentioned someone snooping around their side gate. Then an anonymous complaint popped up in the HOA inbox, accusing me of unpermitted gatherings because my nephews had friends over one afternoon. Then came the letter. Typed, no signature. Delivered to my door in an unmarked envelope. "You may have temporarily swayed the sheep," it read, "but this neighborhood has standards. You don't belong here. You've humiliated yourself. Pack your toys and go before things get worse." I stared at it for a long time, and then I smiled. Because if that's the best she had left, she'd already lost. But I didn't toss the letter. I photographed it, printed 2 copies, and added them to the file Sophie and I had started. A file that now included statements from 6 neighbors, 2 affidavits, HOA bylaw citations, and a recorded voicemail from Agnes left on Carla's phone, where she ranted, "If he won't leave, I'll make the board hate him. I'll make them fine him until he begs." And then, as if the universe couldn't wait for justice, it handed us a gift. Sophie got a call from a former HOA board member from another town. She'd reached out anonymously after seeing Agnes's name pop up on a regional HOA forum. "She did the same thing here," the woman said. "Different place, same tactics. Fines, fear, fake documents. We tried to remove her, but she resigned before we could act. Left the mess behind." Sophie cross-referenced addresses. Agnes had done this twice before, in 2 different states. That was enough. We requested a formal ethics hearing through the HOA Regional Oversight Office, which rarely gets invoked, but it exists. Sophie submitted the full documentation package, including testimony, photos, video, and the anonymous letter. And while we waited for the hearing date, something shifted. People started coming out of the woodwork. Tom offered to help repaint my fence, no charge. Carla brought over lemon bars just because. Even Mrs. Dupree invited me for tea, which she hadn't done for anyone in 20 years. The neighborhood wasn't just healing, it was reclaiming itself. Then the hearing date came. The HOA rented a larger room in the community center. Over 40 residents showed up. A representative from the oversight board came in from out of town. Agnes wore a beige blazer like it was armor. I wore the same polo shirt I'd worn when this all began. Seemed right. They let Agnes speak first. She gave a long, winding monologue about safety, decency, and protecting community values. She denied everything, claimed the video was doctored, the complaints were exaggerated, the fines were fair. Then Sophie stood, and in 15 minutes, she dismantled everything. Emails, voicemails, official records, the resignation history, the lies, the threats, the broken swing, the letter. And then I spoke. "I didn't move here to fight," I said. "I moved here to live in peace, to build something for people I love. I followed the rules." She didn't. I stood quiet while she tore things down, hoping it would end. But it didn't, until now. There was silence. Then the HOA rep spoke. "Based on the evidence presented, we are suspending Agnes Callahan's membership privileges indefinitely pending further review. All fines issued by her in the past 6 months are frozen, and we're initiating an audit." It was over. She stood there frozen. She didn't scream, didn't storm out. She just sat down slowly, like the wind had been punched out of her. And the rest of us? We finally exhaled. Later that evening, as I watched the twins take turns on the new swing, this time with other neighborhood kids lining up for their turn, I saw Tom manning a grill he'd set up on my driveway. "Community barbecue," he said with a grin. "Hope that doesn't violate any bylaws." Carla laughed from the porch. "If it does, we'll just swing by the oversight board." We toasted plastic cups of lemonade and watched the sun go down. And just before it dipped behind the trees, I looked over to Agnes's house. Her curtains were drawn, her clipboard nowhere in sight. She'd built her power on fear, but the neighborhood remembered something stronger: each other.